All right. Well, I know people are going to start trickling in, but first of all, Krista and Reed, I am so excited. I'm pumped for this one. I've been meaning to get you guys on here and have a dialogue. Why I like having you two on here, not that other people don't in the principals community. Not, I mean, a lot of them spend time outside of the community and do stuff, but I have a heart for recovery because I do that as well. And there's something about sharing this to people that have never heard of it, that a lot of times don't give a shit about hearing it, and yet come out and get something absolutely amazing at the end of several conversations, sometimes one, sometimes 20. And that's why I had you guys on here, because I'd love to hear how you guys do it, what differentiates you guys. And I'm gonna ask you guys first and foremost, one of the biggest questions I hear, when we're in the principals community is, you should only be using certain words. And I know you guys use mindfulness, and I want to go right off the bat and just hit you guys with that question. And so, being principal, whatever teaching the principles or that paradigm, why do you guys feel okay using the word mindfulness?
Well, I think that like many words that evoke a concept, that these concepts that come from words that are heard, that rise within us, they tend to be diluted and lose their meaning over time. So mindfulness has become, in my opinion, just a buzzword. And the principles point people back to seeing how the moment to moment experience is being created. And mindfulness in its truest sense is also a way to remain grounded in our senses to that which is, and then become sensitive to when the mind is generating movement away from what's in front of us. What are the facts?
But the reason that we chose mindfulness is because it's a word that people do understand. Thanks to Oprah and Deepak and Eckhart Tolle, this is a thing that people are familiar with. And particularly when they're searching for a rehab and they don't understand some of the psychological terms, they don't understand what the difference between DBT and CBT and, all these traditional models. But they have read about that thing that they do in schools for mindfulness, or they have read about, mindfully parenting your children. And they're like, okay, I can grasp this. So it's one of the reasons that we used it, because it speaks to people. And we know that the actual act of being mindful is really what you find when you understand the principles. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It is, in a sense, like real mindfulness. And so with that being said, when people come to your recovery center, do you guys immediately get into the principles, or how, give me a day in the life of someone like me comes into your recovery center for the first time. I have no idea what this is about. I guess I would say, give me a day in the life, and also what's the most important thing in my experience in my recovery center is me connecting to people first is the number one thing. That without that, I can be the best principles practitioner. I could be the best, I could have all the sit quotes in the world, but if they don't if they don't care to be connected with me, all that goes out the window. So that's, in my experience, what's important.
Well, Reed does admissions, and so he has orientation classes with people before they even start the program, coming to classes, sitting in groups. And I think one of the biggest, it's different all the time based on who is in the orientation class, but one of the biggest things that I think is the direction for that is to help people understand how to listen, because so many people are just so accustomed to this listening for education, listening for knowledge, listening to agree or disagree, or put it into a concept that they already know and understand. And if they're doing that, then they're really missing the point. So I know that that's one of his really key points is listening without. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. So connection has to be there, but let's explore what prevents connection. If we can understand what that is, then connection is already there. So what prevents people from connecting is this listener, which is a psychological inward movement. So helping people understand that we have our senses and that hearing is just happening, but as hearing is happening, there's this inward movement that immediately transcribes that which is heard by the ears and then fits it into the own frame of reference. If we operate like that in our interactions with another human being, then we're only listening to ourselves and there is zero connection. So this is the ground in which we have to address in the very, very beginning, and then constantly remind people of how hearing works, so that we begin to get out of our head. And as my personal thinking quiets down, in that absence of my thinking is the space to allow you to share my consciousness, and then we have a group mind. We're thinking together. And if feeling comes from thought, which obviously it does, everybody on here knows it, and they go, oh, what a great group, and it had such a warm feeling and a good feeling. Even the people that don't speak in the group, if we're thinking together, the feeling is shared and we have the same feeling. So we're just thinking together. And if we think together, then we're capable of solving our personal problems in an easier, bigger way.
Well, I'm glad you guys said it that way. And what a good clarification. I don't try to connect with them. It's, as we discuss it, connection is what the side effect is. It's the thing that happens. That's a beautiful way to put it. Absolutely. So what I have to say one more thing too, not picking on our community, but the listening starts to go away for us too when we start to think we know how to do it. I'm starting to see that a lot. So, and I'm guilty of it too. So I actually want to thank you guys for letting me know, like, listening is the fundamental thing for this. Is if you're listening from, I already know, if you're listening from, well, does this match my principles paradigm? You're not listening either, all of us in this room. So I think that's really important for all of us, not just the other people that aren't hearing the principles. So I think that's really important.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I will admit, if I can go ahead and just jump in that pool, that we were both a little surprised when we started teaching the way that we teach, and we got some pushback from the community. People who said, you're not reading enough SID books, or, you're not using enough SID quotes, and that's not how you say this, and you have to say mind, consciousness, and thought. And we thought, out of all people, out of all communities, this was the community that we had a little bit of expectations that, they would see that it was the same thing. They would see that it was the same thread, no matter what the words were used. So we had to obviously confront our own expectations of how we were being accepted, I guess. But to be honest, the community that we serve doesn't know anything about SID. Half of them have never heard of Michael Neal or Jamie Smart or any of these, any of the amazing speakers that are so wise and have so much to share. And a lot of times they don't care. So we're using whatever words we can, whatever words will connect with them on some kind of personal level. And it might not be mind, thought, or consciousness. It might be, a pop reference or a rock song, but it's the same thing. And ultimately, if we're pointing in the same direction, I don't care what words you use or who you quote. So the goal is to get everybody, like Reed said, to help them see all this interaction that they have in their own day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience, and then to help turn that down so that they can, they're illuminating their own ego, and then they're illuminating the habitual things that continue to come up, which led them to addiction in the first place. and they're seeing their own consciousness, which is pretty awesome.
So I want to piggyback on what you just said, as far as that led to their own addiction. In you guys' opinion, what leads people to addiction?
It's really simple. You just jump in. Oh gosh, it's so simple. It's a really simple misunderstanding of how their experience works. And I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I think I'm gonna start, a horrible alcohol addiction today. It's this thing that they're feeling some kind of way, and they've realized that if I do this, things get quiet, I feel better. And then they build and build and build until it becomes a problem. Until it becomes interfering in their personal life, in their work life, in their financial life, or their health. So it's really the substance, the alcohol, the drugs are never the problem. They're the solution at the time, because they're the things that's allowing people to step out of all that distorted thinking. But it's a really, really innocent misunderstanding that they feel better because of the thing.
Well, and people generally are not comfortable sitting with the contents of their own consciousness. They always want to be occupied. And I think that any act that we engage in repetitively becomes a habit. And then the body seems to me to be the unconscious mind that plays out all of our activities. It drives us to work while we do other things. It bathes the body, and we don't have to think about that. So this is the expression of the unconscious mind. And when we engage in an activity, let's say drinking, and from that there's a sensation, there's an experience that comes along with drinking, and then the mind labels that experience, labels the sensation, and that is what pleasure is. So pleasure is a sensation that's been given a name. And so anytime we feel anything that is uncomfortable, then the mind says, it raises its hand and says, I have the solution. I know exactly what we need to do because I know what pleasure is and I know where to find it. So really just kind of seeing how all of this is working is what loosens it up and allows people to move beyond it.
Yeah, I have to say, I love what you guys said. It is the solution. And in a way that's pointing towards wisdom, because they inherently know that spinning is not natural. So they're gravitating towards something that's stopping the spinning. And what I always say to my group is, but the problem with using substances to stop the spinning, it's like removing your engine when the check engine light comes on. It'll stop it from being, on, but now you don't have an engine. Now you can't function. And so I really love the way you guys actually expressed exactly what I feel as well. I'm going to, I know people may have questions. Are you guys okay to get some questions before I go back and forth with you guys? Are you guys cool? Does anyone in here, you have an opportunity to speak to two people that work at a recovery center day in and day out, huh? You guys are there a lot. Yeah. Does anyone want to, what's that?
I said Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday.
Yeah. And the questions certainly don't need to be limited to recovery. I mean, we do this, but it's the same for everyone.
Yeah. You know what? Does someone have a question?
Well, I would just go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
Oh, I kind of lost my train of thought anyway. So.
Oh, okay. What I was going to say is, yeah, you're absolutely right. I know I pigeoned you guys in the recovery, but it works the same everywhere, right? There's no such thing. It's just that's what someone does when they don't know how something works. Someone gambles, another person shops, another person uses substances. So, well, while people are waiting, let me, Mr. Tyler, go ahead.
Hold on. Hey, guys. So I was going to ask you, Reed, and as somebody who was a client of yours fairly recently. And Krista also. So when you look at, I guess my question around, Krista, you touched on in the beginning about some of the, I mean, I would just call them judgments that you experienced potentially around the idea of the three principles. And like you said, I didn't know when I was there. It was, what was it at the end? Krista, what did I say? Remind me again. I can't remember what I said.
Who is the Sid guy they keep mentioning in all these books?
Yeah, I didn't even, yeah, I mean, I had already had a pretty profound experience in that time. And I didn't understand what are three principles? And, but it wasn't the point that it didn't matter if I understood the definition of, okay, there's a guy named Sid Banks and there's three principles. I saw something that had nothing to do with those concepts. That didn't matter. And if I understood those concepts before seeing that, it wouldn't have made me realize that drinking was this activity, that it wasn't even, that it just went away. Understanding that conceptually would not have allowed me to see that. It was understanding something that you really can't explain in words. And my feeling of being there is that you guys are drawing a circle around something over and over again with different teachers and different pointers and different ways, which is necessary because it's going to hit people on different levels. I do have a question. So my question is, as you guys, I guess I mean, obviously you put me on on this Facebook group, which I really appreciate because you're right, it can be kind of, isolated, I think we talked about. But I do see that sometimes, and it's not, I guess it could be a judgment, but it feels like sometimes it's easy to get wrapped up into what those concepts are and the focus of it. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say, but I feel like something can be missed in everything, but I'm not good at verbalizing what that is. I just want to ask you what your opinion of that is, of what's being missed sometimes, not by everybody, obviously, just sometimes.
Yeah. It's, words are metaphors, every word. The word cup, right, is not the cup. So the thing, the word isn't the thing. My description of this is not what's being described. But when I say the word cup, each one of us has a concept that rises within our consciousness, and that is shared. So all of us have these concepts of cups. Well, if we, when it comes to these metaphors, and when you're talking about principles and all these words, it's easy to lose sight of what these are referring to. So in my experience, the less I get involved in that, the more direct I can be with someone to help them see it without having to give them definitions and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's pointing to the formless, and my understanding that Sid, his experience was, you can label it what you want, three principles, or he had a non-dual experience, or whatever it might be, but he saw that he wasn't this person, this ego, that he was something beyond that, and that is the formless that it's all pointing to. And I found myself looking at this stuff and getting caught up in some of the concepts, and I'm going, I'm focusing on thought, and thought is transient, so why am I focusing on that?
Well, and in people's defense, we tend to want to identify people who are like us. Like it's kind of like a evolutionary trait to identify people that we connect with. And so I think that's true in every group. It doesn't, like if you go into a non-dual group, they're all quoting non-dualist teachers and saying non-dual is the way, and it doesn't matter what group you're in, that happens. The important thing, I think, is that regardless of where your experience, the actual path that you took to see the truth, that you don't think that your path is, better or more enlightened than someone else's.
Right.
Because then that's ego again that's coming in saying, oh, you're the one who has it right and everybody else is just playing. So yeah, I don't think, and that's one of the reasons. So I don't know if you remember, and I'm putting you in the hot seat because you have just been with us, but a lot of our classes were literally the same things that Sid and other people talk about. We just didn't necessarily, use the same language all the time. And so,
It was very different. It would change between if you were teaching or Reed or like May or different people. I didn't know and I wasn't coming in there, and I don't think people are coming to you guys. It's not seeking for a spiritual, or it's just what you're looking for is an answer. It's just saying that I don't have control over this. I don't know the only thing I know at this point is that I don't know how to stop this. And so I've tried different things. Clearly I'm talking to you, so it's not working, right? And then from there, so there's an openness. And I think that it's a great opportunity to present this understanding in whatever way works for somebody, because at that point when I feel like for many folks, you're completely open to hearing and saying, because you've almost surrendered, like whatever I'm doing is not working. And so you really can, for many people, at least my experience, I was ready to hear anything. And then, at first on the admission, I thought that, okay, Reed's telling me I live in the Matrix, that's not very helpful, but then I was like, but this is interesting. And then as you keep listening, you just kind of go, yeah, that is my experience. So I think that it's great to have different ways and to paint it different ways. And again, I think that the most important thing in all of this community and experience is just to see that. And every time we see it, we get it. We only have questions when we are wrapped up in the thinking. And then sometimes we have no questions. And I think that could be very mutual. So, it's a great opportunity to spread that because people are truly open to it.
That's coming from someone that did their program. You sound like just as educated as any of the principals practitioners that I've seen. And that's what's cool about what you guys are sharing, is that when they see it for themselves, I swear if I could record them, they sound like Sid, they sound like Michael, they sound like Jamie. And I go, how the hell do they come up with it? I actually sometimes feel insecure because they can elaborate it better than I can sometimes, because they get hit with that original insight that for me, I've kind of regurgitated it and it's been in my mind and I kind of feel like I already know this stuff. But when they get hit with that and they speak from their heart, which is the most important thing, it comes from them, through them, from their heart. It's so pure. And it's like a drive-by insight. Everyone else gets hit with it too, and it's absolutely brilliant. So speaking of insights, how important are insights? Are insights anything that you guys talk about? Is it kind of a buzzword? What's the idea behind insights for you guys?
Well, we have a large gong, and it's very big in the back of our transformation room, which is where the sharing happens, and it gets struck regularly, and rings throughout the whole place.
It's the insight gong.
It's the insight gong. Yeah.
Are you guys being serious? You guys are dead serious?
I can go take it.
We can take a picture of it, but
you have to post it on our group.
The joke is that you want to hit the gong, not the bong.
Yeah.
Very clever.
That's amazing. I love that. That's awesome. And so when do they hit it? When do they hit the gong?
When they see something that we haven't shown them. And
they know. You get goosebumps. And we've hit it. It's been 3 times this week that I know of, and I'm not here every minute. They know that, they go, oh, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then I'm ready. Let's hit the gong. And it's not something that we're trying to direct people to, because I think people can get very frustrated if they're always looking for an insight, and the looking is what keeps you from the insight. So it's certainly not anything that we're like, sort of trying to make happen. It happens just really organically. But it's huge. It means that their sphere has grown. So you have this sphere of knowledge where everything that you've learned thus far, you kind of reside in that bubble. And, you're comfortable there, and everything that you encounter, you deal with within that sphere of knowledge and understanding. And when you have an insight where you suddenly see something that you've never thought about before, and it's just, or it's something that you've seen every day, but now suddenly you see the other half of it or the other side, you're like, whoa, and your sphere gets a little bigger, and now, you move from that. It's huge. And so they are important, but we're definitely not, trying to make them happen or pushing them or even really talking about it that much. We're talking about everything else that could potentially lay fertile ground for that to happen. So.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that it points to is that capacity is in them. That doesn't get lost. So even, when people are hitting the gong, see, little Freudian slip, the gong, it allows other people to know, wow, this person has been in recovery 4 times. They still have the capacity. This person couldn't even keep his eyes open 2 days ago. He saw something today. So that capacity does not go away, does not get relinquished or removed simply because of the person you were yesterday or a minute ago or whatever. So I think that's a great way of pointing that out.
Yeah, and it's not about time. We have people that get things on day 1, and we have people that get things on, 90 days in, and it's literally just, it's when you've suspended the personal judgment, the personal thinking enough to see something new, because you're no longer trying to fit it into your own personal frame of reference. And I think that's probably at least 75% of our goal in every class, is that we're just trying to get people to slow down, be mindful, pay attention of what's happening, and then see what's happening so that they can step back from it and see something new.
So then you said they can get an insight in a day or in 90 days. The 90-day idea is really popular in recovery, at least in my community, where I'm at. It's like, because people also, you can get an insight today and they say, no, I've been told it takes 90 days. In your experience, okay, you guys are already nodding your head. In your experience, is that the case, and why not?
Yeah, this is happening out of time. When we talk about time is within thought in a psychological sense, an inward time, not chronological like becoming in the seasons and stuff. So change never in respect to our psyche does not happen in time, because time exists within our psyche. Thought is this measurement which is creating what appears to be a past and a future, right? But it's all being modulating and appearing in consciousness now. So this time thing is possibly a stumbling block for people having insights until they have an understanding of inward time and how it's operating within them. As soon as they see that, it's like discovering Santa Claus isn't real after believing in him for years and years, and then just in an instant, it's done. So it helps, though, in my opinion, to listen to people's language and hear someone talk for a while to understand how they see the world. And then you begin where they're at, and you take them from where they're at, from what is to what is, to what is, to what is, to what is, to prevent them from creating an abstraction with a conclusion so they actually go there. And then when this whole thing comes together, this is when these insights happen.
Yeah, that's a really brilliant way of looking at it. I didn't even elaborate. I didn't think of it that way. So that's beautiful. And to make one thing clear for people on this call, Santa Claus is real. Okay, so let's go back to anyone out here. I'm hogging this because I want to ask them a bunch of questions. Mr. Winston, go ahead.
Good afternoon this morning. What time is it? So finally I learned to spell insight. And so at least I moved on past that. And it's a pleasure to hear you talk about, really more substance about how something happens that you can't explain. Do you have any metaphors or examples that you use with people to help them understand some of the insights that they have had in their life? Because whether we realize it or not, we do have them and have had them. So, if you're working or speaking with someone, how do you help them through that?
Metaphors specific to
Help-
insights?
Yeah. Are you asking like from the perspective of the person trying to share with someone to help them gain an understanding? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, kind of. So if you're talking with me, right, and I have whatever problem I have, or because the problem really doesn't matter, you know,
Right.
and you're talking about insights, and I'm going, huh?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we wouldn't be talking about that. we
Okay.
Yeah, we're not telling people that their transformation is going to come from an insight, because then the mind will want to own that, and it'll be a product of the mind. It can't be. It's got to be something beyond thought.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not telling people they're gonna. Yeah, it's like my children, how I help my children see this when they were younger. You know, they get in an argument or whatever, and they're frustrated and they start crying, and I'll carry them to their room and lay them on their bed, and then I'll just, tell them, hey, listen, I know you're upset. First off, well, okay. So, and they're laying on the bed and they got tears and they can't even talk. And I'm like, hey, listen, just relax for a moment. And I want to tell you a story. And all I want you to do is hear my words. I know you're upset, but close your eyes and I want to talk to you. And then I'll go into Christmas Eve and talk about Christmas Eve and the night, and then waking up in the morning before the parents wake up and going in and seeing what's under the tree, and then even seeing what's not up under the tree, which is the Santa gift. And you take your time as you're doing this, and as it's happening, the tears dry, the redness leaves, and then when I know that the thinking has shifted, I'll tell my child, look, open your eyes and look around. Has anything in your experience outside of you changed? The only thing that has changed is thought, right? And that comes with a different experience. I did this with my children, and they were able to see that thought is participatory in creating my perceptions, rather than thought I'm a thinker and thoughts are happening and thoughts are informing and reporting to me an objective world, because that's not how it works. I think people have never, a feature of thought is a feature of that in which we can use is questioning. And I don't think we use it when it comes to ourselves enough.
And believe it or not, our kids, like, this is how they learned, and they actually get it. And in fact, my daughter wrote, she plays on the whiteboard up here at work, and she leaves quotes sometimes. And they're all her quotes. They're not anything that we've said, but I'll post this in the group later. But she wrote, thoughts are just thoughts. Remember, if you have a fear, it is just coming from your thinking of what could happen. The fear is like a bad dream. Think of all the good that could happen. And if you can't do that, think of something else. Now, she's 9, so it's, a little raw. But the point is, they see really clearly that, nightmares and their frustration with their siblings, or their, anger or sadness at something that's happened, that their experience of that is coming from what they think. And it's because when you walk through that and you show them, oh my gosh, you're totally right. It is still Tuesday. Nothing else has changed. It's not Christmas Day, but I do feel better. Then they get this glimpse of the fact, the creation of how they feel. And so they're able to link their feelings with their thinking. And so, that's just one example from at home, but, that happens in here too. So
children teach us amazing things if we're willing to listen and really understand how to listen. They probably know more and or jaded less than any of the rest of us. I admire what you're doing and am proud of what you're doing. About 7 or 8 years ago, I became involved in a family member being arrested for prescription fraud, among other things. And there was addiction involved in that. And so I did a tremendous amount of research about, what our options are, what we should do. It became eminently clear to me that in 30 days that I can isolate you enough to stop the physical addiction piece, to be able to get past that. But unless I could move forward with you, with the person, that then I really haven't accomplished anything. And it was really difficult to find a facility in the United States, that really concentrated or moved towards that. And in the end, we were not successful, and spent a ton of money that, was not necessary. And I feel like on one level, in the world in which we live, you're really up against a brick wall that in the way that people have learned to deal with this, the way that our legal system and everything else thinks that they know what they're doing, right? And getting results that rarely ever work. And I just, you keep going. You're doing a great job.
Thanks. Yeah, I think let's go back to this time piece, because I think I got off. People tend to, like, I visited a residential treatment center nearby and met with their owner and their staff. And it was completely apparent, made explicit to me, that they feel time is the key to the puzzle of being
right.
sober. And I couldn't disagree more, but I can't tell them that, right? Because that's kind of the traditional thinking. But certainly if that was the case, recidivism rates of drug offenders and incarcerated, right, wouldn't be over 80%. So it has nothing to do with time, but everything to do with just a change, a shift in perspective, a change in understanding. And that doesn't take time for that to happen. And
you literally had a client that just called in and never even came.
Yeah, I've had some crazy stories. I've had plenty of people that come one night a week for 3 hours a week, quit cocaine, quit drinking, and now are happy and healthy after just 8 sessions. I had a guy in Tyler knows him. After the 3rd session with us, his anxiety and he was like, I'm never drinking again. I don't have to drink. It's just, they're free from that. There's a difference between drinking and not drinking. These are connected. Drinking and not drinking are connected, but being free from that, it's not associated with it. It's not even connected in any way.
So the awesome thing is we're not teaching sobriety. We're helping people free themselves, and sobriety is just a natural byproduct of that.
That's it. We're literally, and it's not us waking people up. I understand that, but it's consciousness waking up consciousness. It's us getting in there and doing the work, and people unplugging and seeing what's really going on.
Wow, that was rad. That was awesome, you guys. Thanks, Winston. Pramila just went, wow. I had a quick story. Someone raised their hand. They were a little bit frustrated with me saying, look, you could see something right now and your world can change. You say, well, no, because, the person before us said it takes 90 days. And I sat there for a minute. I said, well, what a shame that you get a change of heart in 5 days and you spent another 85 days wondering if it's true. What a shame that would be, huh? And, for a moment, some people giggled in the room, but he heard, out of all people, he heard it. And he saw the fluidity, the transient nature of time in of itself, that it doesn't exist outside of a mind to create it. So it was brilliant. So I'm totally in line with everything you guys are saying. I love it. Winston said that was powerful. Anyone else want to jump in and say anything?
Oh, hi. Can I jump in?
Yes. Who is that?
Can you hear me? Hi. This is Jamie.
Jamie.
Sorry, I'm actually driving, but I'm safe. I'm not watching. I'm just listening, and I'm safely talking as well. So I wanted to ask about the practicalities, if that was okay. I wanted to ask about the sessions and how many there are. Do you do it in sort of 8 weeks, or is it an ongoing process? And I also wanted to ask about the results of whether you complete research and that sort of thing. So can I leave that with you if that's okay?
Well,
Thanks.
our licensing and accreditation with the state require that we follow certain guidelines of providing hours of psychoeducation, which is where the facilitators are sharing, as well as individual sessions with licensed counselors. So this is that's boring stuff that the state requires that isn't our choice, because when you do these deep dives, the most that I can see being effective and productive and remaining in that pocket. And listen, if I have a group of people that see it as deeply as we see it, I could talk all day long and I can stay there with you. But a lot of these people that are being introduced to this, she tells me it's heavy stuff. And so there's a shelf life to where this personal thinking mind can be quiet enough to begin to hear these things. And then the cleverness, the ego, the humor, and all of that comes back online. And then as far as results, I'll let Krista share that. But Tyler on the Zoom call right now, he would also probably be able to add to kind of what not only he's seen within himself, but within others that are participating with us. But anyway, I'll let Krista talk.
So as far as results, we have not yet done a formal study of our clients, but what we're finding is we have a list of every client who's ever completed our program, and our program is really whatever they have set up for themselves as being necessary or useful in conjunction with their therapists. I mean, you can't say, I'll come for 3 days and be done, because most of the time, even though it's not about time, you're focused on this 3 days and just trying to get through 3 days, so you're not actually here. But I'll say it's roughly 4 to 6 weeks, and that doesn't have to be every day. For some people, it's 3 days a week. But for everybody who's finished at least the 4-week program with us, we know of one person that we aren't sure if they are still sober. One. And that's just because we can't get in touch with her because she's moved and she has a new phone number. Every single other person either is in constant contact with us, like they text us, they come to our group meetings, they come to continuing education classes with us on Thursday nights, which is what Reed does. So they're literally not even willing to be done, even though their program is finished. And so for some of these people, they're driving 2 hours one way to come hang out with us, and they no longer have to, they're not required to, and they're still coming, they're still showing up, which is amazing to us, because not only does it allow us to stay in touch with them, and we have real friendships with these are great people, it's awesome, but also it helps grow our community, because these people are continually coming together, and it makes the experience for the new people that much better, because the group is already there. So for one in the last year, I'd say we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
so,
Reed, you said I can only speak for like my experience and the people I've seen, because I still go on Thursday nights. Krista, you never come. You said you would, so I'm putting you on the spot right now. But we,
yes.
You need to, and but it was interesting because it left. And it's hard to explain. I don't know. I think a lot of people on this call know that, but it just went away. And I remember the moment that I realized and it wasn't like it never came up again, but the power of it was just seen for what it is, and it was understood. And to explain that would never do it justice. I don't know who sees it that saw that, but I know that that's always present, and that was the answer the entire time. It was right there. It was reached. It was closer than my breath, and So when I tell people, when people ask me, and they're, obviously, good friends, and, they say, how are you? How's it going? You okay? And it's like the story. I don't, I tell them like, I'm great. I don't, they're like, oh, well, do you ever feel this way? Or do you feel the desire do you see people drinking? And I probably should not say this, but I did have a glass of wine and I didn't like it. And that was really interesting to me. I was just curious. It wasn't I had a desire, but I did. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try this, and it wasn't as scary. There's no emotion to it. And it happened. And I said, this isn't enjoyable. This is not something. It felt like it was not something I would pursue. And that's when it really hit me. If you need, like, if there's proof in the pudding, is that here's somebody that I really used to enjoy doing that quite a bit, in fact. And that was something I did seek out that landed me there. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, I decided to just say, oh, I'm going to try this. And it wasn't enjoyable. I would not try to do that. I'm not against it. I don't judge it. It's just not something that was, but it also made perfect sense. And it allows you to actually forgive. People say, I hear this a lot, that you need to be able to forgive yourself. Well, I mean, I've had the experience of being able to see how I felt, why I was doing that, because I felt contracted. I felt like this located person in here that was constantly thinking and feeling and looking for different incremental times of reprieve from that. And so it was a constant achieve and seek. And if that's just kind of your natural state, which you guys point to, is saying that is who you are. You are that. What do you say, Krista? You are you quote Michael Neal, your favorite?
The infinite creative potential of the entire effing universe.
Fucking universe. It's awesome. And so, yeah, I mean, then you see that. And so, people don't believe me when I tell them that. And that's okay too. I wouldn't believe that either. And it's not me trying to justify that. There isn't somebody that needs to prove that to somebody. And that's the ultimate freedom. And it's been a process, because you don't just see that and everything's fine. You're still thinking, but I feel it dissipating more and more. And the people I see that come in, it's, like, oh boy, Reed, he dealt with a lot of anxiety, and it was just, I was there, and he just got something, and it was like gone. It was just gone. I don't know how much therapy you have to pay for to get to that point, but probably a lot. You guys are a bargain. And so, and then many people, they come and they're there, and then you kind of see them over the course of like a few weeks, and they're like talking about things that happened that would usually have sent them into a real mental jam. And they just go, like last night, this woman that we know, she said that, this would have caused me lots of suffering before. It would have been a real problem. But the difference was I actually like moved into it. I went into it and felt it for what it was, and everything was fine. And I was sitting there, I was like, Jesus. The first night she was there, she was really combative, and she was telling Reed, like, you don't know what you're talking about. This is ridiculous. And here she is talking about major things happening that she specifically moves into to feel it for everything that's happening. That's amazing. And so, it's not something that is, it's the realest thing I've ever seen, yet I can't explain it. So it's kind of interesting, but anyway, I'm not sure. I forget the question.
That's good. I think Steve had a question at one point. I don't know if it's still on his mind.
Oh, I did. No, not a question. It was more of a comment.
Okay.
It's what I call the silent insights, where these are not the big Hollywood moments that I see it all and you go and bang the gong. I reckon a lot of people go along to see whoever they see, and they get real shifts. They just don't know. And they can go to bed and they get up and everything's the same, but it's different. Yes. And they just don't know how that happened. And a lot of that goes on. So have heart. And trying to say when you can have an insight in a time span is just, how long's a piece of string? It's just really it's a fruitless quest. Because I had a great, when it's like trying to catch a butterfly, it's impossible, but if you sit still, it will land on your hand.
No. Yeah.
So mine is just silent insights do work as well.
Yeah. No, for sure. We had a lady that had been with us, and she was driving a long way. She was older and she had health issues, and she, wasn't able to participate, whatever. And she left, and she called me at the beginning of this week, and she said, Reed, the insurance has mailed us some stuff that we need to bring to y'all this week. And she sounded sober, right? So I'm like, well, this sounds good. And then she said, I forget exactly, I can't quote it, but it was, I guess I did learn something when I was with y'all, and I had no idea I had learned anything. And she said, I'm playing bunco with the ladies in the neighborhood now. I'm spending the night at my daughter's and hanging out with my grandchildren, and none of this was going on. She had isolated and just stayed in her home and drank all the time. So that's right. These shift, it catches you, and the more that there's of me trying to get it, that activity is what's preventing the scene.
I think the realization comes when someone asks you a question and you realize, oh, I don't do that shit anymore. You've not put any serious effort into it. You've not thought about it, whatever and you just, my God, that's changed.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Yeah.
But you haven't sat down waiting for the big Hollywood insight, or, I've been there 30 days now. I've still got 30 to go there. It's happening. If you hear this, because you're just connecting with who you really are, and we've forgot. We've got the power cut off sometimes. Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead, there's something wrong to it. And then they get it, and you just get through to your wisdom again. So everybody's all right. We're all good.
It's one of the reasons that a lot of recovery centers will have a graduation for people when they're finished, they've completed their program. Mm-hmm. And we really don't. People just finish when they're finished. And one of the reasons that we don't have a graduation is because we're not done. How are you graduated? It's this constant evolution of recognizing yourself. There's no end to that. It's always changing. You're always experiencing new stuff, and so we certainly don't want to put an end and say, well, you're done, you're recovered, you're done, never think again, and so we're kind of odd in that way, because most people have like the ceremony thing where you're
ritual.
The ritual.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. All right.
So I have a question with that then. This might be controversial. I apologize in advance. So in AA, they say once an addict, always an addict. Do you guys subscribe to that?
I mean, only if you're like once a bedwetter, always a bedwetter, I mean, most of us have wet the bed at some point in our lives when we were children. And then when we learn better, we stop doing that. You move past it. It's something that you did. It's not something that you are. And so we don't even subscribe to the disease model in the same way, because we feel like, once it's past the chemical addiction, the chemical physical addiction of, whatever you've used, it's just well-worn habits. And so, I used to bite my nails, and I would have to stop and, put nail polish that tasted bad on them so that I didn't have the urge to do that. And I think I even had a rubber band at one time where I was constantly popping, and the thing that stopped me finally from biting my nails was the fact that I really wanted nice nails, and I knew that if I continued to do that, that I was never going to have it. So it just went away, and I don't even think about it. I don't have to fight that urge anymore. So I don't consider myself a nail biter. So no, we don't even talk about labeling people as an addict. We don't, these are just people. It's essentially the same thing that other people do when they shop to make themselves feel better, or when they, gamble to escape, stress, or play golf to escape stress or a bad day. It's just, it shows up in a little bit more, I guess, unhealthy habit. So obviously we're here to help people move past that, but
yeah, if you got a mind that's made up, it can't change, right? if I have a conclusion, if I confront you and I have a conclusion, that conclusion is what prevents me from hearing. If I come with you to you and meet you with an expectation, these expectations, assumptions, opinions, and conclusions, if I feel that they're anything more than just a fleeting thought, then it's just cutting me off from growth. And since thought is the instrument to all action, if you can help someone really just understand the nuts and bolts of it, they'll fill in the rest. They'll see that, oh, okay, it's okay to have drinking thoughts. It's okay to have using thoughts. It's okay to have thoughts like if you see a beautiful woman on a magazine and I'm like, good Lord, look at that hot lady, right? That's just normal. We're just thinking. That's okay. That doesn't get us in trouble. But this understanding that thinking arises within me and I have an experience of thought and I'm not that thinking is what opens it up to where the thought can pass without us being blind puppets to anymore. And you have to help people. Let's say you don't have to help people. It helps to guide them to have that realization that they are not the mind or the body. And you can do this in practical ways that aren't woo-woo. And when people taste that and wake up to it, it's the game changer.
So how do you see the future of this? It's revolutionary what you're doing. I mean, what do you envision in 20, 40 years from now because of you?
Yeah, well, we're looking at location number 2 as we speak. And then we're grooming. We're growing our people. We're developing a bench in order to be facilitators, because we're definitely not unicorns, but we have a decent understanding that connects with people, and we want to have a lot of these.
Yeah, I think we're ready to help change.
I mean, do you see the potentially, because of this, that you could eliminate addiction altogether from ever creating in the first place if you start this understanding like you did with your own children from day one?
We would love to be out of a job in that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you imagine the world? Yeah. No, you can get on the preventative thing, right? But there's a ripeness maybe necessary in a bell curve. There's outliers of everything, and we could sit here and go, I don't know anyone like, right? That's fine. But if there's a bell curve, that bell curve, these people are ripe. I mean, if you've struggled with an addiction, you've seen you're living a life that is not in accord with your nature at all. And it's a rubber band that's just being pulled, and it just sucks. It just sucks. So to come here and find peace and allow to relax that previous effort and to be in touch with who you really are, what a freaking gift.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
You talk
Okay.
about that really tangible.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for instance, if you want someone to come to see that they are not their thinking, right, and that they're not their body, and I talked about this last night. Tyler heard me. We're so conditioned to just follow thought as it rises and never question it. Mm-hmm. To know that we're not our thinking may require being there'll be a lot of friction that gets generated in your body, but it's as simple as literally sitting. So when I say this, Winston, it's like if you tell someone, okay, here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to make sure that your belly's full, that your bladder is empty, and that you're physically comfortable, and you just go sit. And it's like this thing is this F1 Formula race car. It's got a full tank of gas up here because it's constantly going and going and going. It's like running on solar energy, right? And then if you remain still, and the mind is going to do what it does, and it's going to create the result that it creates. But if we remain with the result, which is what thought creates within us, rather than going to the thinking that's creating it, we're in a position to things begin to change. So if we remain still and we just begin to notice all of the thinking that is impelling us to do things, it's saying, hey, go check your email. Don't you need to do this? Don't you need to check on this? Hey, what about this? And no, you just remain still. If we do this long enough, the anxiety, what we refer to as anxiety, which isn't anxiety, but that's just the name that we give to the sensation that shows up, right? It's just a freaking another concept. So you could even say something like, as this is appearing, man, I got a lot of anxious thinking showing up for me right now. You could even have this self-talk, which changes the meaning because it changes the concept, because the metaphor changes. But if you just remain with it, do that. Well, in my experience, doing this at some point, and it's probably different for everybody, the mind gets frustrated at the body's inability to allow its expression. And then it goes, well, if you're not going to allow me to perform for you, then I'm going to go away for a little while. And when she goes away, you have this beautiful, peaceful feeling. And it's the confirmation of the universe giving you a fist bump that this is it.
It's a girl in your head.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. They're always trouble.
So we are past the hour. I have to say a couple things.
Sorry.
That was really quick. That's quick. So yeah. I feel like we just scratched the surface with you guys. I can do probably another 2 hours. Would you guys be down to having another one with them? Just okay, Pramila, we got some hands raised. Steve flipped us off. All right, fine. That's fine if he doesn't want to do this again. But no, there's a thumbs up. What I was going to say, before, do you guys have a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first thing I wanted to say, one of the biggest qualities that I like about you two is not because you know the principles or you do it differently or because you do it better or you call it mindfulness. You guys are just cool ass people. And I'm telling you, that sounds like a really weird thing to say, but it's so refreshing to have down to earth people that you'd like to go to the park with, kind of people, or go to dinner with and talk about this stuff, and not such a frou-frou way. And we have to have this deep, understanding. It's just people having a chat. I'm telling you, that is one of the most impactful qualities that I've had that's been so useful. And you guys exemplify that in such a way that it's just absolutely beautiful. So if you guys got anything or nothing out of this besides just two cool people, which I'm just saying that because I know I got a lot out of it, but just seeing them and how they show up and how they just tell you how it is and how they see it, there's nothing writing on it, is an incredible gift. And I wanted to make that out in the open and let people kind of digest that. The last bit I wanted to say is, number one, how can people get a hold of you? And the second question is, or you can do it vice versa, is what advice would you give for people here that may have a family friend, a family member or a friend or somebody they know that may have a substance issue? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, we're definitely down to go to the park or to dinner. Let us know.
I'm coming up to visit you guys, so.
We're ready. You keep threatening, right? But we are in the Atlanta area, so if anybody is ever even remotely close by, let us know. You can find us both on Facebook. It's just Krista Smith and Reed Smith, obviously. We're in the group. And then our center is Centered Recovery. What was it? Sorry, I'm so confused. He was reading chats and I got distracted. But we're on Facebook at Centered Recovery, and then our website is also centeredrecovery.com. And then you go to the events.
Yeah, if there's someone struggling, we need to be sensitive to the images that other people have of us and really know how these images are not only being created within us about ourselves, but about others. I know that I was much, much older as an adult that I realized that my mother had attempted to tell me things that I had learned as an adult that I didn't have ears to hear from my mother because I was her son and she was my mother. So if you're trying to help a loved one, leveraging the relationship in order to gain ears for someone to hear some common sense typically isn't how that operates. So first off, don't beat yourself up that they're not hearing you. And then there certainly is always hope. Good gracious. As long as you are breathing, conscious, and thinking, your life can change like that. And that's the only time it is going to change. So, if you do have a family member or a loved one, we don't have a residential facility here, but there's sober living, right? Which you pay $1,000 a month and live. If anyone needs help, reach out to me and we'll figure it out. Because if you're serious, you want to save someone's life and help them see not only a way to be sober, but to be healthy and happy and connected to their health and their wisdom, you call us and we'll make it happen.
Thank you again, you guys. I can't thank you guys enough from the bottom of my heart. And I'm sorry, I was reading it too. But a lot of people said thank you. A lot of people were so gracious, as I am. And if there's any final words you guys want to say as a thank you or anything, you guys feel free to say it now.
Thanks for having us. We
Thanks
appreciate
for having us.
A lot of people are saying it was amazing. Reed, Krista, I hope you guys enjoyed this too. And this will be up for you guys in our group as always. And I'll make a link to you guys at Centered Recovery. They're always gracious enough when I email them. They always respond back when they can. So great to have both you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll continue the dialogue, and we'll do another one of these if you guys are down.
Oh, happy to. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody.
Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Y'all take care.